Hello, welcome to the Quartermuncher experience. I'm Quartermuncher. Pokemon Sword only has a total of 2 legendaries, which is a very tragic amount. However, I recently finished the game and it's my goal to catch them all. Once you beat a Pokemon game, that tends to open up the open world so you can catch more Pokemon, more legendaries, etc. However, I'm doing the Pokemon DLC for Sword, which includes the Isle of Armor and the Cloud Tundra. I've got to fill out the Pokédex for both of them, deal with some additional plot stuff. See, the original first 3 Pokemon games had generations 1 through 4, but Sword has monsters from generations 5, 6, 7, 8, and even some from 9 as well. So let's get to catching. This isn't a review, this is a journey. Let me tell you about the Quartermuncher experience. Pokemon Sword, Isle of Armor, and Crown Tundra are basically what happens when Game Freak expanded Galar by adding full micro-regions that are basically giant wild areas, built to test later ideas used in Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. Isle of Armor focuses on a light-hearted martial arts themed mini-campaign with open grasslands, beaches, and a focus on training a Pokemon called Kubfu. Crown Tundra is a colder, more mysterious region with legendary hunts and even legendarier Pokemon. Both new regions already expand on Galar's excellent world building. The Isle of Armor focuses on JoJo's traditions, Kubfu's ancient training paths, and has a martial arts motif, whereas the Crown Tundra deals with lost monarchs, a lost kingdom, all across a frozen landscape. It makes these regions fun to explore and not just Pokemon catching. As far as towns and dungeons go in the Pokemon DLC, both areas have a very small, let's just call it a base or a little village, and a massive open area with Pokemon to catch and places to explore to catch more Pokemon. In Pokemon Sword, the name of the game is gonna catch them all for me. At the end of Pokemon Diamond and Legends Arceus, the post-credits opened up a whole nother base of Pokemon. Here in the DLC, we're going through all 3 regions of Galar, the wild area and the 2 DLC ones, to catch what's left of the Pokédex. Most Pokemon games are route-based. There's a simple, very long linear path from A to B that the whole game takes place on, whereas this DLC is more exploration-based. You don't have a linear path. Heck, since there's 2 DLCs, I regularly flip from one to the other, as well as went back to the open area, wild area rather, to go back and catch some Pokemon. A special shout out goes to the Crown Tundra DLC, whose entire main quest line is, 4 major quest lines, all dealing with a branch of legendary Pokemon. To no surprise, the graphics of the Pokemon Sword DLC, both Isle of Armor and Crown Tundra, remain unchanged from the base game. The good cartoony looks of the original look just as good as in the original, if not here. However, the wide areas look a bit better in the base game, with larger vistas and more diverse biomes. You have beaches, forests, swamps, snowy tundras, foggy ruins, and ancient temples, especially in, both of them. They nail the atmosphere just fine. The music of the DLC passes the main test. Nothing in there I considered super notable, unlike the original game, but they all work. As far as the game's technical aspects are concerned, The DLC functions at a stable 30 frames per second. There's some pop-in and open areas, but the performance is more consistent than the base game's wild area. In my playthrough of the Pokemon Sword DLC, I started with the Isle of Armor, in which I completed 3 in-game trials and got myself a Cubfu. The game, however, wants you to raise this level 40 Pokemon all the way to level 70 before you complete the next step, so I went ahead and proceeded with the Gonna Catch Them All standard, by which I mean I went ahead and started on the Crown Tundra and completed the main quest of it. You unlock you follow 3 branches of catching legendary Pokemon, and you catch all of them. However, the 4th one, once you beat the Crown Tundra DLC, unlocks Dynamax Adventures, as well as the capacity to unlock catching Ultra Beasts from the Ultra Beyond, as well as a few other legendaries from other generations I didn't have yet, so I could quest while I quest. As far as likes and dislikes go, there's not a lot here that don't already apply to the base game as well. One thing I definitely liked about the DLC is that you have better catching odds. The wild area in Sword is a bit too crowded to actually find specific Pokemon. Coming to catch them all means that if I have to grind in one patch of grass with 2% odds, okay. But the DLC has better odds for a few Pokemon, and that made all the difference due to both the main game and the DLC being massive open worlds. One thing I definitely disliked about the Pokemon Sword DLC was the AI. A lot of this was spent playing Dynamax Adventures single player, in which you and 3 other trainers tackle a big giant monster, and a lot of times it's a pain in the ass when the AI uses Calm Mind instead of Shadow Ball to take down the big giant Pokemon. This process occurred more than a couple times and enough for it to be something of an annoyance. The best part of the DLCs is that it reminds me of Pokemon Brilliant Diamond's endgame, catching an endless buffet of Pokemon in the Grand Underground while I grinded for mysterious shards to catch legendaries in Romanus Park. The name of the game is, again, Gonna Catch Them All. My goal is to catch all 1,000 Pokemon. I've liked the ideas of the wild areas and concept, and adding 2 more with some plot really spices up what I consider a long grind of leveling and catching Pokemon. The worst part of the Pokemon Sword DLC is the lack of Pokemon Centers on the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra. Both of them have no PCs to switch up my Pokemon, so it's a bit repetitive having to fly back to the main game land anytime I simply wanted to switch up my team. I had to frequently choose if I wanted to continue playing the DC or leveling my Pokemon to evolve, never both. Alright, by the numbers, I had 2 more whole Pokedexes to complete for 3 in total. That's 414 Pokemon, call it all together. I started with 322 main game, 131 armor, and 146 crown Pokemon caught. A lot of overlap between all 3, that's the center of a Venn diagram of all 3. But I ended with 384 Pokemon, 201 from the Isle of Armor, and 202 caught from the Crown Tundra, not counting Ultra Beasts and Legendaries that just aren't in the Pokedex. And this whole thing, Pokemon Sword rather, took me 71 hours in total, and just 41 of that was for the DLC and the back half of the main game. Alright, well that's been it for the Quartermuncher experience. If you like what you see, like and subscribe. Till next time, I'm Quartermuncher, and I'll see you then.